Hello everyone and welcome to This Week in Stupid for the 7th of February 2021. I would like to apologize if you hear a cat meowing. There's nothing I can do about it. You see, my cat is in heat and it desires some of that male cat toxic masculinity. With that said, let's get into the news. Now, last week, a couple of independent retail investors managed to make hedge funds lose a bit of money. And because of this, everyone freaked out. Now, the way I understand how things work is that you have some billionaires out there which are betting that companies go bankrupt. And the way they do this is they borrow stock from a company that will go bankrupt. They sell the stock to the market, and once the company goes bankrupt, the stock becomes worthless and they can buy it again and give it back to the person they borrowed it from. Now, it's not completely unheard of that the billionaires who have connections with the mainstream media now have financial interest in order for those companies to go bankrupt, that they will create a media blitz in order to help those companies along into bankruptcy. And this is why a lot of people hate these billionaires, because they cause people to lose their jobs and they get rich while doing it. At least that's what I thought, because now when I get my wisdom from the Washington Post, it tells me that the good guys in the GameStop story, it's actually the billionaires. For you see, those poor and mistreated billionaires are specialists who research stocks that might go down. And sometimes this happens because the bosses are illegally covering up bad news about their companies. When short sellers identify a case of fraud or similar, they borrow and they sell the stock, hoping to buy it back at a lower price later. Again, there is nothing evil about this. To the contrary, it is a way of keeping prices honest. A market without billionaires is like a political system without investigative journalists. Wow, I am 100% sold now, Washington Post. So when I look at billionaires, I should see Lois Lane and Clark Kent doing me a service while they're getting wealthy in the process. Secondly, I am warned by the ADL to be distrustful of people that are buying stocks and they're betting against billionaires because they might be anti-Semitic. The more you know. But the most important thing of the story is to see billionaires and the mouthpieces really care about us. I mean, I had a tear dripping down my cheek when I realized that there are billionaires out there who can't sleep at night because they care about not just me, but our well-being. And here is an example of a gentleman who goes on television to share his concerns with the public.
Learning here, maybe it's fun, fine, maybe it's a movement, but be prepared to lose 80 to 90% of it, and if it's still worth it, then have at it. But the biggest loss of capital here will be the human capital of young men who are sitting and staring at their phone and watching the price of Bitcoin or the price of AMC. And ask yourself, would you be better off taking that 1, 2, or 3 hours a day and working out, trying to form relationships with mentors, with romantic relationships, with people at work, getting great at something so you can be the person on the other side of the trade? The greatest loss in capital here is from young men who are more prone to gambling addiction, who don't understand the markets. I think we are setting ourselves up similar to how there's a ton of young women out there who became very depressed by sitting in their rooms looking at Instagram. Self-cutting and self-harm skyrocket. I think you are going to see an explosion in young male depression, and I think a lot of it is going to be reverse engineered to apps that convince you you're part of a movement or physically addict you to your phone. Ask yourself, would your time staring at Robinhood be better spent somewhere else? That is the real capital destruction that is taking place here.
Well, gee, I never thought about that. So when social media became a thing and people got addicted to their phones, that's fine. When identity politics became a thing and a lot of people thought they're part of a movement, that's fine. But when people buy stocks, oh, no. No, depression. No, that's horrible. Just go to the gym. Go work out. Improve yourself as a person. Stop caring about movements. Stop caring about changing society. Think about yourself and what you can do in order to improve yourself. Meanwhile, in the gaming news, Arexakra Orksogortek describes the terror of being trapped under wracks during the Krieg shelling. I was almost cramped, says the brave orc knob as his buck teeth chattered against his jaw plate. He then explained to reporters how his base upon the orc world of Moredaka and planet of Vrax Prime are in the same subsector, and therefore are basically in the same place. Now, speaking of journalists, which I understand are exactly like those billionaire short sellers on Wall Street, the Huffington Post tells me, we have another example of quality journalism from Huffington Post. This is being addressed to a conservative MP from the United Kingdom. Dear Kemi Bendock's office, a number of Black cross-party MPs took part in a video encouraging vaccine take-up across Black communities. This initiative has been well received and praised as a positive move. I understand that Mrs. Badenoch, as Equalities Minister, refused to participate in this video. May I have a statement detailing the reason as to why? We're currently working towards a deadline of 5 p.m. today. So, if you want to learn how to do journalism and you don't want to be like a brain-dead YouTuber such as myself, this is how you do it. You say that you're a journalist and you're hiding behind the institution of your publication. And then you say that you are on a deadline. This is very important. It's that marketing tactic that gets you to buy things you normally wouldn't. When the company says the offer is on a deadline, it will expire soon. Buy now, purchase, don't think, just buy. And then you need to understand that the person you're contacting isn't always very smart. I mean, sure, they're a politician, but they're dumb. And you need to tell them, you need to inject your own opinions on the matter. And you say that the initiative was very well received and praised as positive. What the fuck aren't you doing? In other words, you just help society move into the correct direction, because society is often blind and lives in darkness. But you as a journalist, you need like the short seller to provide that beacon of light, that beacon of hope, and guide people towards the right path. And here we have the New York Times, this institution, this bastion of wisdom, morality, and most importantly, truth. And we know that truth is a short commodity nowadays. The journalist told me so. Which is why the New York Times is trying to help us out to discern the fact from fiction. You see, they suggest that the Biden administration can help solve the reality crisis. And no, this is a Cthulhu rising from the depths of relay and damaging reality. No, the reality crisis is that people cannot tell fact from fiction. And experts could actually step in and create a reality czar, according to the New York Times. A reality czar that's going to obviously work hand in hand with the established media in order to help pea-brains like yourself and I manage to figure out the truth. And I suppose this is how the reality czar functions. This is how fact-checking is supposed to work, because I'm reading from Snopes. And as I'm reading from Snopes, something catches my eye, something that I didn't even know about. But they ask, like, did a convicted terrorist sit on the board of a BLM funding body? And at this point, I'm outraged. It's like, how can a prestigious organization that is the BLM have someone like that on the founding body? And you start reading it, it's like the past crimes of Susan Rosenberg. It's like, no, this can't be it. This can't be a real person. And I Google it, and then yay and behold, no, that it was a Susan Rosenberg, which apparently did something very interesting. You see, Susan Rosenberg is a convicted terrorist. So not just a person that's accused, it's like the judge and jury found the defendant guilty type of situation. She was an active member of revolutionary left-wing movements whose illegal activities included, oh my God, bombing the US government buildings. Can you imagine if Mr. Orkso Doretek would have been alive during those times? I mean, the media would have had an aneurysm. That would never be accepted. And it shouldn't. It's just like, wow, really? And she also committed armed robberies. Now, Snopes saves the day, though, because I was worried. I was like, no, such a prestigious organization cannot have a person like this as an example, as a founding man. Oh my God, no. So how does Snopes manage to save the day? And this shows just how brave and smart the fact checkers are, because they are able to delve into the facts and bring out the truth even in situations like this. You see, in the absence of a single universally agreed definition of terrorism, it is a matter of subjective determination as to whether the actions for which Rosenberg was convicted and imprisoned, possession of weapons and hundreds of pounds of explosives, should be described as an act of domestic terrorism. Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you, Snopes. Thank you, Snopes. I don't know what I would do without you. Now I know. Also, Wikipedia has informed me that Lisa Rosenberg is an American activist, writer, advocate for social justice and prisoner rights, but also a former terrorist. Okay, she put her past behind her, and we are, as a society, we like to forgive people for their past deeds. We are willing to give people a second chance, to allow them, you know what, you did bad, but try again, improve yourself. In other news, if you missed my previous video about the New York Times Science Division, one of the brave journalists from the New York Times, while on a trip to Peru, found out about a heinous deed. You see, one of the teenagers, which was also in the trip, has recorded a video when she was only 12 years old and said a slur. Now, this obviously led to complications as the journalist immediately tried to get to the bottom of it. And while interrogating the teenage girl, he has said the slur himself. And of course, we live in a society where no second chances should be given to such people, and the New York Times journalist has been cancelled. I can definitely imagine the conversation. Did you say the N-word? What word? The N-word. Which word are you talking about? The one with ni... I see what you're trying to do there, little girl. Not gonna work on me. Haha, I'm not going to say ni... And thus ended the career of a New York Times journalist who has been at the company for decades. The letter he wrote before his career suicide states, "To the staff of the Times, on a 2019 New York Times trip to Peru for high school students, I was asked at dinner by a student whether I thought a classmate of hers should have been suspended for a video she made as a 12-year-old, in which she used a racial slur. To understand what was in the video, I asked if she had called someone else the slur or whether she was rapping or quoting a book title. In asking the question, I used the slur itself. I should not have done that. Originally, I thought the context in which I used this ugly word could be defended. I now realize that it cannot. It is deeply offensive and hurtful. The fact that I have even thought I could defend it itself showed extraordinarily bad judgment. For that, I apologize. To the students on the trip, I also extend my sincere apology. But my apology needs to be broader than that. My lapse of judgment has hurt my colleagues in science, the hundreds of people who trusted me to work with them closely during this pandemic, the team at the Daily that turned to me during this frightening year, and the whole institution which puts its confidence in me and expected better. So, for offending my colleagues, and for anything I've done to hurt the Times, which is an institution I love and whose mission I believe in and try to serve, I am sorry I let you all down. Donald G. McNeil Jr. And speaking of the Times, Time magazine releases a very interesting article which can get you in trouble if you are quoting parts from it on Twitter, as Mini Beanie Tim Pool recently found out. The secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. According to the article, in a way, Trump was right. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. The pact was formalized in a terse little notice joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, published on Election Day. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive racial justice protests, in which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. The Times article further states that this is why the participants won the secret history of the 2020 election told, even though it sounded like a paranoid fever dream. A well-founded cabal of powerful people, ranging across industries and ideologies, working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change rules and laws, steer media coverage, and control the flow of information. They were not rigging the election, they were fortifying it. They touched every aspect of the election. They got states to change voting systems and laws and helped secure hundreds of millions in public and private funding. Can you imagine if the GOP would have also tried to fortify the election? Can you imagine, just think if the situations were reversed. Could you imagine if someone tried to fortify the next election with Biden? Can you imagine? Just imagine. Meanwhile, the company who made a powerful statement last year is in hot water as it seems their product isn't working as intended. The consent condom requires for hands to open, making a powerful statement about consent. Yet one of the clients from this company has pointed out that her husband managed to open the pack alone. And she says that if her husband managed to do that, then an assailant could also do the same thing, thus putting her in jeopardy. Her husband Goro has refused to comment. However, brave activists have unearthed his social media post, which claims that when he is horny, his two hands work as four. In other news, Senator Sanders, who claimed that he is not going to raise the minimum wage like all the people who voted for him believed he would, is no white supremacist insurrectionist. However, he manifests privilege, and not just any privilege, but white privilege, male privilege, and least of all, class privilege, in ways that my students could see and feel. And because Bernie Sanders is such an evil man, he has been modded as one of the main villains within the Resident Evil universe.
Hey there, Bernie.
Thought you'd just slip out before dinner was done?
Why is he so scary when he's on a chair? Well, you know, at least you've already got a chair.
And in other news, pickup artist Roche V seems to have found religion. And this definitely reflects into his writings. Demons can put thoughts into your mind. Scientists have spent decades trying to understand the brain, and while much has been gained about its neurochemical workings, most of that newfound knowledge has been harnessed by the elites to control our thoughts and behavior. We're still no closer to understanding why we have consciousness or even why we dream. All the while, an important fact has been concealed from us as taught by the Orthodox Church. Thoughts can be inserted into our mind by demons. In other words, the thoughts we have are not entirely our own. For example, if I lay eyes on a sexy woman, a demon may then be able to insert sexual thoughts into my mind. That leads to lust and the corresponding psychological response. I don't have any proof that this is true. Only the understanding that if there was a lag between your perception and the demonic influence, their power would be greatly diminished, if not outright trivial. They must be able to act quickly on the stimulus we perceive in the environment, fast enough for us to conclude that it is ourselves who have created the thought and not an external source. For the more we believe a thought came from our brains, the more trust we have on it. Meanwhile, in the land of the free, the Biden administration is going to circle back some ideas from the past back to you. A federal mask police has been created. The federal mask police is going to enforce Biden's mask orders on airplanes, ships, ferries, trains, subways, buses, taxis, and rideshares. The federal mask police operate in plain clothes and have broad authority to enforce Biden's orders. Officers have wide discretion in assessing penalties. They can simply eject a passenger for violating or issue a lifetime travel ban by adding them to the federal database. Federal mask police are also given wide discretion in determining which face coverings are appropriate. Passengers who are determined to be wearing their masks too loosely are subject to anything from a fine to an arrest. Passengers who take too long to eat can also be cited. The Biden administration has empowered city and state law enforcement to enforce his mask orders as well as TSA agents. Each agency and individual law enforcement officers will be able to determine how violators should be punished. And that's all I got for today, folks. If you enjoyed this episode of This Week in Stupid, then please subscribe to the channel, hit a like, and that notification icon. If you want to hear similar things about the entertainment industry, such as movies, video games, and anime, then I have a secondary channel for that. And if you want to interact with me in a live stream, then there is a channel where I live stream as well. And if you're really like one of those bizarre people that wants to buy buyer's remorse, then I have a subscribe star. All of these, if you scroll down, are in the pinned comment, the first one that you see. And I will see you guys within the comment section. Take care and have a nice week.